My name is Chris Comte. I'm the contracts administrator for the SAG-AFTRA Seattle local office. I actually have a background in theater. I've been a performer, and I'm going to try not to play too much to the camera. I've actually lived in Seattle since 1985, but I have degrees in theater. I was an actor for a while. I still dabble in theater occasionally, but for the most part, I've been working either for AFTRA, and then when SAG and AFTRA merged in 2012, started working for the combined union. I started out doing membership, and now for like the last about 5 years, I've been doing contracts administration. So basically, my job is to work with or one of my main focuses of my job is to work with producers with our contracts, and as part of that, I also give these presentations. What we're going to be talking about tonight is our low budget and new media contracts, and so there's a series of them ranging anywhere from student to short film to various tiers of feature length theatrical contracts, and then our new media contract. So basically, the kind of the intro on this is, you've got an idea for a movie, you've written a script, you got a bunch of your friends together to put the thing together, and now you're looking for some actors. You don't really know maybe any actors, or the people that they're your neighbors or somebody who maybe doesn't have a lot of experience, particularly working on camera in film type production. So you're looking for some more experienced performers, which is what we can provide. So these contracts will specifically allow you to hire professional union performers, which in turn is going to give you a smoother shoot. You don't have to train them as you go, which is going to save you time, particularly when you're working on a short project with a low budget. Time is of the essence. You don't have time to teach people how to do their job. And with the ultimate goal, of course, is to get your film seen by somebody who may either be in a position to get you more work down the road, or potentially even monetize your project if that's something that you're interested in. So this is what we're going to be talking about. So the SAG-AFTRA low budget and new media agreements, benefits of using our members in those projects, an overview of how to sign your project to one of our contracts, and then some of the other resources that we can provide you as a filmmaker. So this is basically your takeaway. So we just want you to know, regardless of your budget, and I mean regardless of your budget, we have a contract that will allow you to use professional union performers on it. And I emphasize that regardless of your budget, because I sign projects all the time, particularly in the short film category, that literally have $0 budgets. So we're used to working at that level. So this is just, we have an online production center. It's on our website. This is just kind of a screenshot. It's not going to look like this after very shortly, because we're actually doing a major redesign of our website. If you go into our contracts tab at the top, the very first item on the drop-down menu is the production center. And basically at this point, you can take a look at all of our contract categories, all of the contracts, all of the documents. There are FAQs online, basically, and a walkthrough on how to actually sign the project. So basically anything you would need to be able to get your project signed up to one of our contracts is available on our website. So who do we represent? Well, of course, we represent actors, we represent stunt performers, we represent singers, and particularly royalty musicians, so singer-songwriters, but also session musicians or session singers who do sound recording. We represent dancers, particularly dancers in music videos. And these are what they can bring to the table. So again, they know the mechanics of the business, so you don't have to teach them that. They're going to help you improve the quality of the project, which in turn is going to increase the chance that it's going to be seen or receive distribution. And also, another really important aspect of all of this is that providing you as a filmmaker with some professional experience working with professional contracts and professional talent. So even if you are really interested in making movies, a lot of times, particularly starting out, you're going to end up being on crew doing something, whether it's second assistant or PA or whatever it is. But one of the things that working with our contracts is going to give you the opportunity to do is, for example, how to fill out some of our paperwork, how to fill out a timesheet, how to deal with actor contracts, and some of the just sort of the basic things that as you go higher up in your career and work on progressively larger and more expensive productions, are things that are going to put you in good stead, because again, as you don't have time to train actors on your shoot, production people don't have time to train you on how to do those aspects of the job. So if you walk in and say, oh yeah, I've done a couple of short films and I know what an Exhibit G time report is and things like that, it's just going to make you just that much more valuable to that production. So these are the agreements that we're looking at primarily. So student, short, ultra low budget, modified, standard low budget, and the new media agreement. These are all based on what we call the codified basic agreement, which is this puppy right here. So as you can see, it's about 700 pages long. It weighs about 3 pounds. We absolutely do not expect you to know the ins and outs of all of that. That's what we're here for, as a resource, so that you don't have to try to wade through this telephone-sized book and try to find an answer to your question. So the theatrical agreements. So this is just a breakdown of just some of the basic parameters of these particulars. So at the top is the category. So the top line is basically the budget limits. So for student films, anything under $35,000 would qualify as a student film. It sounds like a lot of money, but when you're dealing with, say, a situation where you're like at USC Film School, for example, it's not unusual for people to spend 35 grand on a student film project. Short film is under 50, ultra low under 250, modified under 700, low under 2.5 million, and then of course above that is like your standard big budget theatrical contracts. And then the new media is under $50,000. The second line down here is maximum running time. So for student and short film, it's a maximum time of 35 minutes. Feature is no maximum time. And then again, the same for new media, because we understand that particularly with new media, there are a lot of ways that you can put product up on new media or structure it. So you might just do a single short film that's maybe 4 or 5 minutes long. You maybe do episodic that could be several episodes that are 3 to 5 to 10 minutes long, or you could actually do something feature length. So we don't put any kind of time restriction on that to allow you to have the kind of flexibility that you need to do the project that you want to do. The next line down here is dealing with compensation. So under the student, short, and new media contracts, we have what we call deferred compensation, which means that for any of the covered performers working on that project, if they agree to it, you actually don't have to pay them anything up front, which is going to obviously save you a huge amount of money, particularly in the short term. No worries. You'll just edit this out in post, right?
Of course. That's all right.
And then when we get into the theatrical contracts, then we start actually getting to actual upfront compensation. So on the ultra low, it's $125 a day. Modified low is $335. Low budget is $630. And then the next line below that is weekly. So obviously on the shorter ones, we don't offer a weekly compensation, because in many cases, like a student or short film, it may only take you a weekend to shoot, if even that. So there's no reason to even have a weekly salary. And then $1166 and $2190. Now, just to give you an idea of how this ranks in terms of on our standard theatrical contract, a daily salary would be about $980 a day. So as you can see, these are actually very deeply discounted off of what our standard rates would be, because again, we recognize the fact that you're working on much smaller budgets, you have much more constraint in terms of your line items and what you can actually afford to pay performers, and so we're not going to ask you to pay top dollar for a performer if you're working on a $200,000 budget. And then the very last line is who is covered under these particular contracts. So under the student, short, and ultra low budget theatrical, only professional performers are covered, which means that you can mix your cast. So if you have a SAG-AFTRA member that you want to hire, but then you've got a bunch of other roles that you want to cast as non-union performers, you can do that. Those non-union performers aren't covered under the terms of this contract, so you actually are free to negotiate separately whatever terms with them that you want. If it's $50 for the shoot, or if it's like screen credit and a free DVD and a couple of hot meals, we're totally good with that. It's when you get into the modified and the standard low budget, because your budgets are now higher, that all of the cast would be covered, and so they would all have to be compensated, and there's no deferred payment. There's a little bit of a twist with the new media in that a non-professional performer can get eligibility for membership based on two conditions. One, they have to have been paid up front, so they have to actually earn some kind of money from doing the project, and we actually have to get verification that the project has actually been completed by submission of a final cut version of the project. Frankly, we've had a lot of people abusing this new media agreement as a way to sort of sneak in the door in terms of getting their membership. I mean, things when I literally just ran into this a couple of days ago, people will set up like a Kickstarter campaign and they'll say, hey, give me $250 and I'll put you in my movie. And then you can get SAG eligibility credit. I'll give you the, you know, I'll sign off on the paperwork. So we had to cut that out. But it's an option. It's like they don't have to do it, but they can do it if they meet those two criteria. So the student film, again, just to sort of reiterate, these are the basic criteria that you would need to do to qualify for student film. There's a budget of less than $35,000, has to be shot entirely in the US. We can be a little sort of flexible with like second unit footage, as long as there's no actual actors in it. But basically it's because we don't have jurisdiction outside of this country. You know, if you go to Canada and you want to shoot a film, you're under the jurisdiction of whatever the Canadian unions are in the film industry, and so we can't. Our contract will not cover you up there. Maximum running time of 35 minutes. You have to be enrolled in an accredited college or university, and again, we have a little bit of flexibility with that too. For example, like Seattle Film Institute, not a four-year school, but they actually do get accredited through an academic oversight committee. So if you, for example, we're going to school SFI or taking one of their courses, you could still use the student film agreement. And then you have to be doing it for class credit, which means we just need to get a letter from your instructor saying, yes, I'm doing this as a student film project and I'm going to be graded on it. So again, some of the benefits: deferred salaries, only covers the professionals, and some other production benefits that we'll get into a little bit more detail here in a few more minutes. Short film agreement is very similar, a little bit larger budget, $50,000, same US shooting, maximum time 35 minutes, and pretty much the same benefits. So the difference is that if you're not a student in a school, you can still use the short film agreement, whereas the student film obviously is only going to be available for student projects. Ultra low budget, and this is assumption of some sort of a feature-length film that is going to have at least initial theatrical distribution or release. And we basically define that as like if you put it in a movie theater and your friends come and see it one night, that is actually, we consider that to meet the criteria for initial theatrical release. If you decide to do something with it later, like you want to sell DVDs, you want to put it up on like YouTube, or Amazon has their option for if you self-produce projects and you just want to try to monetize them, that's considered a different usage and it would probably have to go under a different contract. But as long as you do that initial release in some kind of a theatrical setting first, then you qualify. Now again, here we start getting the actual compensation. So $125 a day plus a pension and health contribution, which is basically a contribution the employer makes to the performer's pension and health fund, which is 18% of their gross earnings. Again, under ultra low budget, only covers professionals, so you still can mix your cast without having to sign everybody to the contract. And then once we get into the modified, because we're going up higher in terms of budgets, you're going to find that not only do the day rates go up, but we also provide a weekly rate, which is going to be a break if if you've got a lead who's going to be with you the whole project and you've got a 3-week shooting schedule, then you can actually hire them on a weekly basis, which is actually going to save you some money too. And then the low budget, which again, $2.5 million sounds like a lot of money, but even under indie standards, 2.5 mil is a pretty healthy budget. And again, as you see, then the pay rates go up and so on and so forth. One thing I should mention on the modified low budget is that there is actually a way to increase that budget cap. We have a couple of incentives. One of them is what we call a background incentive. If you agree to hire like 10 background performers on contract for each day of shooting, then you can get a bump to that cap. And then we also have a diversity incentive. If you agree to hire 30% of your cast in any of the federally recognized protected categories, LGBTQA, women, elderly, minorities and Native Americans, disabled, veterans, et cetera, then you can also get a bump. If you combine those two, you can actually raise that $750 budget cap up to like 1.2 million. So it gives you, again, some additional flexibility in that. So this is what, in terms of how you can exhibit these particular projects. So most of them are available. You can go ahead and do, like film festivals, really for just about any of these. Public access channel, I know it sounds a little weird, but when we made these contracts up, 20 years ago or so, public access, pre-internet, public access was still actually a very popular way for people to get their short projects out. And in fact, even still, I mean, there's still the Seattle channel and some other, we still have cable access here. And in fact, in a lot of larger cities like New York has an entire channel that's devoted to nothing but arts programming on cable access. So there are still avenues out there where that is useful. And then of course, then we get into the features and its initial theatrical release. There may be some extra costs involved if you move over to another distribution channel, like it goes to television or pay cable, or you do DVD sales and things like that. A lot of times that will involve some sort of a distribution deal that you've set up. You take your film to Sundance and somebody likes it and they give you a big chunk of money. So we're not going to ask you to pay that ahead of time. But if you actually get somebody who actually monetizes your project at that point, then those performers would be due some kind of residuals or royalties, which is like it's like, in most cases, it's about 3.5% of the gross, divided up among all of the performers who are eligible for that. So it's not a huge amount. So again, we just want you to know that throughout this whole process that we're going to treat you as professionals, because we feel that the amount of money that you have to spend on your project is not what defines whether you're a professional or not in this industry. It's the type of work that you want to do, and so we want to treat you like a professional. And as you build your sort of resume up by working on these different projects, and hopefully the idea being that you'll sort of graduate from tier to tier to tier and move up in this this structure, so that you're doing increasingly larger, increasingly higher budget projects that will put more demands on you, but we're not going to throw so much at you, at least initially, that it's just too overwhelming for you. So these things are all very simple to execute. There's not a lot of paperwork involved. It's a very simple process, and I'll go through that in here a little bit more. Some pictures of pretty people, so winning awards. I guess that's the takeaway from that. Is that yes, some of these projects actually do. And again, just a reminder that if you use it in any other medium other than the one that it was originally designed for, that there will probably trigger some additional compensation at some point. Again, if you have any questions about anything, my contact information should be at the bottom of one of the pages on that. There's actually two sections. The first page. This is just a sort of a more bullet pointed breakdown of just the basic requirements for those contracts, and then this page is actually a lot of online resources, links to our websites, my contact information, and some other things that might be of use to you. How to contact the local film office, City of Seattle film office. Just some resources that would be helpful for you as you're putting your projects together. And again, I'm the person that you would contact, and my email address and phone number is there, and I'm always free to answer questions. I actually spent like almost 2 hours on the phone this afternoon with somebody working on a student project, because she just had this very detailed list of questions that were very sort of specific, and and she was just, she said at the end of this, she says, I know that this is just makes me sound like I'm just so OCD, but she says, I've never done any of this before, and I don't even know if I'm asking the right questions. I said, there's no wrong question, so anything that you ask is a right question. And I actually had a very great conversation with this person, because they were so organized and just so specific about what they wanted to know, which is kind of rare for me to get those kind of people on the phone, because usually it's like, I'm going to do this thing and I don't know what I want to do, and so she was just very different from that. So the new media agreement. So this is a little different from some of our other contracts, just because of the nature of the medium itself. I have sort of gone away from using the term new media, because in some cases some of this media is like 20 years old. It's not really that new anymore. I've just started using the sort of more general term digital media, which I think most people understand. But I mean, back in the day, it was, internet was anything that came through on a web browser, and what was, quote, new media usually was coming through on some sort of a mobile device or some other thing that wasn't necessarily tied to your computer. The example I like to use is you go to the gas station, you pump gas in your car, there's a little video screen there showing you commercials or showing you little snippets of entertainment news or whatever it is. That would be considered new media. It's non-traditional media distribution source. So again, mobile platform devices, the internet, it's all the same thing now. We watch movies on our phone. We make phone calls on our computer. So these are basically what you would need to qualify for the new media. Got to be made for, again, initial distribution on some kind of a new media platform, intended as entertainment, which is a pretty broad sort of general category, but basically it's something that's more traditional storytelling than just like just a simple video blog or something along those lines. And it's not going to be, at least initial, not intended for other initial distributions. Got to go up on some sort of a new media platform first. And then again, $50,000 budget total for the project. Now that doesn't include deferred payments. So it's like if you're going to defer payment to your actors, for example, on this, then you wouldn't have to include that in your $50,000. Again, most of these projects come in well below $50,000, so it's really never been an issue. I'm lucky if I see, $5,000 is a lot for a lot of people to spend. So again, just another sort of way of looking at the breakdown. Again, no maximum running time on new media projects, again, to give you that flexibility that you need to be able to structure the work product however you want to do it. Again, and as with any of the deferred payment situations, you don't have to pay the P&H contribution if you don't pay the performers up front. Again, residuals may also apply for other distributions. And again, at the bottom there, if they're not a member and they want to get eligibility status for membership in SAG-AFTRA, then they have to show us that they were paid up front, and they have to show us the work product. So signing the project is actually pretty simple. And in any of these cases, student short, new media, and ultra low budget in particular are very, very simple. If you go online to our production center, there is basically a brief questionnaire. This is just a screenshot. We're not asking you for a lot of very specific or weird information. We just need enough basic. Who are you? Where do you live? What are you going to shoot? What do you think? What do you think your basic budget's going to be? When are you planning to shoot your project? So on and so forth. It literally takes less than 5 minutes to fill out the application form. And again, everything is done on a web-based platform, so you can do everything online electronically. You don't actually have to print out a single piece of paper on any of this, and including actually signing the actual contract, we can all do electronically. So we're trying to save trees, and it actually makes the process a lot faster and smoother for everyone involved, because it means that the necessary paperwork can get passed back and forth that much more quickly. As a general rule, we ask for like you start the application process about 3 weeks before your first day of shooting, particularly with new media projects and the low budget theatrical projects, because those are going to be handled by our staff in Los Angeles. And it's just simply a matter of just workload and throughput. They have so many of these projects coming in the door every day, and even though we have like 7 or 8 business reps who are just assigned specifically to do theatrical and new media, they're dealing with dozens and dozens of projects at a time. So that just makes sure that we have enough time to make sure that everything gets squared away and that we've got everything that we need and you have everything that you need, so we're not pushing up against that shooting date and you're going, I haven't seen my contract yet, what do I do, what do I do? Because we don't want that to happen. So again, just very, very simple information, nothing out of the ordinary. Type of distribution. Again, just a lot of this is just simply so that we make sure that we're tracking you on the right contract, so that if somebody has a question, it's like, well, is this a new media or is it theatrical? We can make sure that we resolve those issues, again, well ahead of your start of shooting date. And that's really pretty much my presentation. So like I say, I'd be more than happy to answer if you have any other specific questions about anything. These are just contacts for our LA office, but again, I'm your first line. So I mean, if you have any questions about any of this stuff, and that includes after I walk out the door this evening, and you go, shoot, I meant to ask about that, just call me or send me an email. like I say, this is a big part of my job, and I'm more than happy to answer questions online, offline, or anywhere in between. If you see me walking down the street, just go, hey. It's actually happened to me before. So, and again, just some links to some of the other, again, the Production Center, which is where most of the production resources are going to be. SAG Indie, which is actually a trade industry organization that we've set up basically to cater to the independent film community. AFTRA is an online casting service that we provide as a service to our members. So again, if you don't know, you're looking for actors, that's you can either go in through iActor, or in a lot of cases, filmmakers will just say, hey, I'm looking for some people. I've got some basic casting, because you're not going to be at a level yet where you're going to want to probably spend the money to hire an actual casting director. Just shoot me what you need, and I'll send it out. I mean, we have our emailing list of 1,400 members who live in Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Alaska. Actually, no, 2,200 if I include Oregon, because that's technically separate. So we can get the word out to a lot of people. Most of the 1,400 members who are members of the Seattle local, live probably within 100 miles of the Puget Sound. So we can get the word out pretty quickly to a lot of people, and frankly our members love doing these projects because actors want to act. That's what they're here to do. They're not concerned in many instances about how much money they're going to be making. A lot of them see it as a mentoring opportunity to be able to help guide and train up other younger performers who maybe don't have a lot of experience working in a professional setting. They want to help you as a filmmaker because they're really interested. They like your script, they like the character. They've worked with somebody before on a similar project or so. So there's a whole bunch of reasons why they might be interested in doing your project that have absolutely nothing to do with how much money they may or may not actually end up being paid. And again, on the short and student film projects, and even on the new media projects, any of the ones with the deferred payment option, we recognize, and so do they, that probably 90+% of the time, they're never going to see a dime out of that because you're never going to see a dime out of it. And so it's just not an issue for them. They will do it because they want to do it because you're offering them a good opportunity to do the work that they want to do.
One of the questions that I had was on the short film requirements. It says limited to film festival entry. For that, does that mean that you're only allowed to submit? Could you explain that?
Yeah, most of these are the requirement is for what we call, again, initial distribution. The short film, for example, is intended primarily for submission to film festivals. If you choose to do something else with it, like I say, put it up on a YouTube site or package it into a DVD or something like that, that's going to trigger some additional compensation on your part. So as long as you stay in that film festival track, for example, and you've done the deferred payment option, then you're never going to have to pay those performers anything. It's only when you put it into a situation where it goes outside of that particular distribution or something where you're actually trying to generate some revenue with it, that at that point, then you would end up having to pay those performers. And if there's, if there's actual distribution money involved, or you're earning revenue from, by putting it up on a some sort of a paywall situation or something like that, then you're going to owe those performers. So it's just really about what you do with it first. And frankly, with a lot of the short films, a lot of people do them because they want to get them into film festivals, because then somebody at the film festival will see it and go, oh, okay, now we'll give you money. We like the short project that you did. There was one that was shot here last summer called Prospect. That actually just won a couple awards down at South by Southwest. That was originally done as an 11-minute short that they did. The screenwriters, directors did as a proof of concept. They had a longer film in mind, all from the very beginning, but they said, we're going to just shoot like this brief sort of intro to give potential financial backers an idea of what we're trying to do with this movie and what we want to do if we have a larger budget. And they got some financing. They got enough financing to then actually be able to go back and do the feature-length project that they had intended to do all along. So that's where running it through the festival circuit can actually be advantageous to you, because that's where people who are going to see it are going to be in a position to give you money to make the bigger more ambitious project that you have in mind all along, but just don't have the resources to do at that particular time. And that's very common. It's very common for people to shoot sort of like pilots or sort of introductory segments of their pieces as a way to sort of kick open the doors to the bigger project that they really, really want to do.
Another question that I had was about the actors.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything? Is there any sort of agreement that the actors have to make as well to follow along to SAG? I mean, if they sign a SAG contract, does that mean that they are locked in they've agreed to shoot that film for that time?
Yes. Now there can be a couple of exceptions to that, particularly with the shorter projects, because you do not have the ability to hire performers on a weekly basis. Because again, the expectation is you probably in most instances don't need a week to shoot the project. They do have an option. And it's spelled out in their employment contract, so you would actually see that ahead of time. That says if they give you 36 hours notice, that they have like an actual job coming up that's like a commercial or something like that, that they can back out with the 36 hours notice. We try, and we're very adamant when we talk to our members about these projects, is that we understand that an actor dropping out on that short of notice is going to cause you a lot of problems. We really, really, really actively discourage it. And I can say really in all honesty, in the roughly 4 years that I've been administering these contracts, of the literally hundreds of projects that I've done, everything from student short, low budget and new media, I think it's maybe happened once. So we understand that it's hard to hold the actor to a long-term commitment, particularly when there's something that actually has some substantial amount of money involved. But we really, really, really stress to them that if you're going to commit to doing this project, commit to doing this project as if it was a really money-making project. I mean, again, it's part of that professionalism. We don't want you to have a bad experience. And if somebody drops out like that, and then suddenly, here you are 2 days from shooting, and you've got to scramble to recast the part, and so on and so forth. We totally get that is going to create a huge amount of stress on you, and we want to avoid that if whenever possible. So, like I say, it's happened once, maybe twice that I can think of off the top of my head, but it's extremely rare, and we really actively try to discourage it. For one thing, because we don't want that actor to get a reputation, and they may go, "Oh, you're just a beginning filmmaker," but everybody started out at the bottom. You never know. 10 years from now, you're going to walk into a casting session, and that director's going to go, "Oh yeah, you're the one who bailed on my project at the last minute, are you? Well, nice to see you. Guess you're not going to get this part, are you?"
So it's just another layer of like assurance.
Exactly. And again. For the covered performers, our members who are working on these projects, they are signing on to an employment contract. Mm-hmm. You will actually get a contract that you will have them sign that says that they agree to the terms and conditions of working on this project. So there's protections on both sides. Yeah. I mean, that's the entire point of having these contracts. It's not just to protect our members, but also to provide you with some degree of protection as well too. Because again, we want your shoot to go well. We want to do everything we can to give you the best possible environment to do the work that you want to do. And bailing like that is, we can't stop them from doing it if they're really serious about doing it. But we let them know that just like anything else, there are consequences to every decision that you make.
What's your age range as far as members? Is it?
They range from toddlers to octogenarians, and everything in between. Okay. There are talent agents in this market. Obviously, if you go to the bigger markets like LA and New York, you're going to find. But there are agents in this market even that specialize in kids, for example. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking for kids, we can actually hook you up with agents or with performers who are in the age range that you're looking for.
I guess my question and my interest in this is if I were to go to you all for our student project, mm-hmm. That technically wouldn't actually fit under the student realm, right? Because
right, but the short film agreement would work for you, and the terms, as you can see, are almost exactly the same. Right. In fact, you have a little bit higher budget, which again, for most people is not going to be a big deciding factor one way or the other. But the short film is basically designed to work for people who, even if you're a student, but don't qualify because you're not enrolled
Right.
in some kind of a program.
And so I guess I'm just trying to figure this all out.
Sure.
Also, that wouldn't mean that I have to be part of the union as like the filmmaker.
No, we don't represent. I mean,
It's
no,
just
we
the
represent
actors
people who
and
are
the
in
talent.
front of the camera or behind the microphone.
Got it. Okay. Cool.
You would be looking at talking to somebody from Directors Guild or Writers
Got it,
Guild
yeah.
or something like that. That's
Okay.
that's everybody. Every sort of job category has its
Has its
jurisdiction of a different union. The crews are all working under IATSE contracts. The drivers are working under Teamsters contracts. Designers have their own guild. So everybody's once you get up to that level, everybody is in some kind of a guild or union. But we represent the actors.
Got it.
Now you can be a member and do a project.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. I mean, one of the reasons why we created these was so that members could self-produce their own work. But you don't have to be a member if you are actually the producer or the director or the screenwriter or anything like that.
Sweet. Thank you.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then I had one more question about the diversity cap.
Mm-hmm.
You said it was at 30%, right?
30%. If 30% of your cast is represented in one of those protected categories.
And the way there's no way of you'd have to have that proven before like. before
Well,
it's issued.
because it's only available on the modified low budget agreement. One of the things that, for example, it's like when you set up your auditions, at that point you would probably be using the services of a casting director. And so part of the casting director's job when they call people in for auditions, they'll contact the agents or they'll contact performers, they'll schedule the audition appointments. Pretty much everything is done on video, is recorded nowadays. So the actor sends in a recorded audition, they'll read through the sides and things like that. But part of the job in the audition process for the casting director is to track that information. So they'll look at an audition and they'll go, okay, this is a female, they're 56 years old, they're Native American. So all of that information will be tracked by the casting director, so that at the end of it, when you're looking through and you're looking at actually casting the roles, you can go, okay, this person fits into these protected categories, so on and so forth. So you will actually have an idea while you're going through the casting process of what protected categories a particular performer may fit into, and then that way you'll be able to determine whether you're meeting that 30% ratio.
Yeah. Great. Cool. That's kind of all the. This was really great. This was really.
Okay, now the Blue Book, like I say, goes through all of these in a little bit more detail. There's a little bit more sort of just broken out by contract category. So again, feel free to take one of those. I can kind of get through a certain amount of information in a given period of time. That's got a little bit more information. But again, like I say, if anything comes up, you can't find the answer to a question either in the printed materials or online, call me, send me an email.
Thank you so
I'm always
much.
available.
Yeah.
Well, not always, but
Thank you.
most of the time.
So much.
Thank you. I'm glad you were able to make it. So
Yeah,
I'm gonna
get
guess
back to
that.
that filming, so.